Hello, everybody. Welcome into Front Office Overtime. I am Keith Smith. I'm your host. Trevor Lane is not with me. Trevor is he's unfortunately he's at a Christmas party right now, so he could not be here tonight. He sends his regrets that he couldn't make it for this episode of Overtime, but I'm happy to be here with you guys. We get a lot to break down. We've got a trade that'll happen presumably tomorrow. We think at least when a couple of the guys become trade eligible. We've got a second trade that is already agreed to as well. So we're going to get two trades right out of the gate here as trade season unofficially opens on the 15th. We had a very interesting waiver with the way it was timed up. So we're going to get into all that stuff and get in everything with y'all. We could talk NBA Cup if you want to. We'll probably go we'll see how long it goes, what kind of questions we got, what all we have going on here tonight, and we'll go from here. Armo Shady asks, what's the other trade? So we have the bigger of the two trades is Dennis Schroder for DeAnthony Melton, and it sounds like 3 second-round picks are going to go from the Warriors to the Brooklyn Nets. That is the bigger trade that's not been guaranteed yet, not gone official, because DeAnthony Melton can't actually be traded from the Warriors until tomorrow. He becomes trade eligible on the 15th. The vast majority of the players that were signed over the summer become trade eligible on December 15th. So that's when we'll see DeAnthony Melton be able to get traded, and he's going to get traded for Dennis Schroder. It's just straight up 1-for-1 trade with the draft picks going from the Warriors to the Brooklyn. They're great for both sides. I think Brooklyn gets 3 extra draft picks out of Schroder, who they was playing really well for them, but they're not really trying to win. So that was kind of going against that objective there. And then on the other side for the Warriors, they needed another on-ball creator, another person who could really get them some offense, especially when Stephen Curry is on the bench or Stephen Curry misses games or whatever it is. They needed another guy that could really juice the offense. They struggle a lot in the non-Steph minutes, and now Schroeder comes in. He's really, really going to help them. So that's a trade I like for both teams. It just makes a ton of sense for both the Warriors and the Nets. And they're not going to be done. I don't think either team is done. The Nets still have a lot of guys available in trade. They've been very active talking to teams about just about every player on their roster. And the Warriors are still looking for upgrades too. They're working under super duper tight margins. And this makes that even harder, not having Melton's salary able to put into a trade, because that's going to go off to Brooklyn. But, they early movers. We've been talking about this. I wrote about it for Spot Track. They really wanted to get something done right away. And now Golden State gets the extra benefit of really almost 2 full months of having Schroeder, month and a half, 2 months with that. So they'll be able to keep that moving with that. And then that second trade to finally answer Harmo Shady 21's question, Thomas Bryant is going to head from the Miami Heat to the Indiana Pacers. Much smaller trade. Pacers need another big body. They needed another center. Heat are trying to get even more wiggle room under the aprons if they want to make future moves. I don't think this means that a Jimmy Butler trade is imminent or anything like that. I think that's probably going too far. I think this is just Miami setting things up for the future so that they'll be able to go. So I think that's going to be really important there for them. So I think that'll be good. Guys, just keep loading your questions in the chat. I'll grab them here in as I see them. Flying solo today. We all know what it looks like when Trevor's not here to captain the ship. It gets a little sketchy on this, but it's I'll be able to catch up and do what I can here as best I can with this. So but yeah, so that's the other trade that's going on. And then the other thing that happened today, we got news. The Detroit Pistons are going to waive Paul Reed. So to really kind of lay this out and explain it for everybody, Paul Reed was on a non-guaranteed contract. He made about $7.7 million this year. That does not mean that the Pistons clear 7.7 off the books. Paul Reed had already guaranteed for about 2.5 million. I'm rounding to make things a little easier. So how that works is because every day he's on the roster, he gets a guaranteed amount. So Paul Reed gets about 2.5 million. Pistons clear about 5 million more in cap space out of that deal. So they're up to about $15.5 million in cap space. Here's the interesting thing. Whenever they actually waive Paul Reed, and I apologize if this has gone official, I don't think it has yet. Whenever they officially waive Paul Reed, I see Kyle, you're in the chat. If that's already been made official and you've seen it, drop that in the chat so I know. But there is no once it goes official, they're going to be under the salary floor, and the Pistons will have 1 day, 24 hours to get back over the salary floor. Otherwise, what happens is they end up missing out on the tax disbursement from the league, so they would not actually be eligible, and that's about 19 to 20 million per team as it stands right now. So the Pistons would not get that, because you don't get that if you're under the salary floor. So they're going to make this move. I see Kyle saying it has already happened, so I just have not had a chance to check the transaction log. I was busy watching the Hawks-Bucks game and working on some other things. So anyway, they're going to have 1 day to get back over the salary floor. Now, here's the good news. One prorated minimum contract gets them there, and it'll only cost them a little bit to get back above the floor. So I would expect that to happen very quickly. But they're still going to have, even on a prorated minimum contract, they're still going to have over 14 million in cap space available to use. Crucially, that is above the amount of the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. And that means that the Pistons are in a place where they can beat offers from other teams to just eat a contract if that's what need be, if a team needs them to be a facilitator. With so many of these teams working very tight around these tax aprons and hard caps, that becomes really crucial. So Detroit could be in there in a good place. Paul Reed will be on waivers for 48 hours. Any team that has the ability to claim him, that has, I would say cap space, but we know that's only Detroit. So the teams that have a big enough trade exception, or the mid-level exception, or the room exception, because Paul Reed's contract fits in there, they can actually make a waiver claim for Paul Reed and bring him in. I kind of don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll probably clear waivers. And then what we'll see happen with Paul Reed is he will end up signing with the team of his choice down the line and kind of go from there. So that's where I kind of think this will go with Paul Reed. Pistons have 2 open roster spots. Like we said, they got to fill one within a day to get back over the salary floor, because that needs to get done. So expect another move coming from them, and then we're going to kind of see where it all goes from there. So a lot of fun transactions, a lot of kind of crazy stuff going on already. It had been something like 30 years since we'd actually seen a December 15th trade made, which is really kind of bonkers, but we're going to get at least one and probably two, because I would expect the Schroder trade happen as well. The Thomas Bryant one's definitely going to happen tomorrow. I would expect the Schroder one to happen. I can't find the message, and I don't want to do too much scrolling because I'll get lost here, but somebody asked what time tomorrow. There isn't a set time. Players become like trade eligible at midnight, but the league won't process transactions overnight like that. They'll process them during the day tomorrow. So you'll see trades get made at some point tomorrow for these two. And then who knows, we may have another one or two come. I generally don't expect early trades this quick, but we'll go. Let's see. So we'll go back to the Schroder one. Smokey asked, does Golden State have Schroeder's bird rights? They'll have his early bird rights because that's what he had. He had only done a 2-year contract with the Nets when he saw, or I guess with the Raptors. I think that was initially where he signed. So they're going to get his early bird rights that way with that. But that should be more than enough to re-sign him if they want to do that, because that would give him a little bit of a bump over his $13 million salary that he has now. So that should be more than enough for Golden State to re-sign Dennis Schroder if they want to do that. Let's see. I marked off a couple questions here. Enrique Segundo, greetings from Brazil. Hey, thanks, man. We appreciate you checking in worldwide on the front office show here. We appreciate you guys checking in. A little front office overtime. Wasn't expecting to do a live show this weekend, but here we are. The NBA brought us a couple trades. I am flying solo. If you're just joining us, Trevor couldn't make it. He's actually at a Christmas party right now, so yeah, he sends his regrets. But we're having some fun. We're gonna have a good time hanging out here for the next little bit, talking about these trades that are going down. Again, Dennis Schroder traded to the Golden State Warriors, and then we had Thomas Bryant is going to be traded to the Indiana Pacers, and then the Paul Reed waiver from there. Jermaine asks, I know the Jazz are going to make a move. Is there anything you're hearing on their vets? Teams have been talking to the Jazz. Jazz have been talking to teams about pretty much just about everybody except the guys on the rookie scale deals, outside of Walker Kessler. But I was told just the other day that the Jazz have kind of cooled on moving Kessler. Not that they wouldn't move him, but it's going to have to take a real offer. They're very happy with the way he's bounced back this year. He's played much better, looks more confident. Looks like the guy he did as a rookie versus the guy he did last year. But John Collins is very available. They're open to listening on Colin Sexton. Lauri Markkanen not trade eligible. He cannot be traded at this trade deadline. So there's nothing going on there. Nothing will happen there. So it's going to be, I would expect the Jazz are going to do something, Jermaine. I don't know what it'll be. They're trying to, and they're succeeding in bottoming out, having a very high draft pick. Then they want to create future salary flexibility as much as possible there in Utah. So we'll see where that goes. I'm going to go to Martian Murray asks, can second apron teams renegotiate contracts to make salaries match, to make trades happen? You cannot renegotiate contracts in the NBA minus one very specific example, and that's only if a contract is eligible to be renegotiated and that the team has cap space. Then you can only ever renegotiate a contract up. You can't ever renegotiate a contract down. So that's a little bit of the challenge there with that. It's not like the NFL where we hear that all the time. Major League Baseball, that's usually done by we'll pay half the salary, you pay half the salary, that sort of stuff. It does not work that way in the NBA. Dark Galaxy, you expect DFS and Cam. I am guessing you mean Cam Johnson, but Cam Thomas has also been in some trade rumors and reports as well to go for, considering what Dennis went for. Dorian Finney-Smith, I expect to be fairly similar type of return, probably some second round picks, take back a salary that's expiring. The Nets are really going to be looking to, they don't want to take on bad money right now. I think they should be more open to that personally, but right now they're looking for salary flexibility. So we'll see, but I don't think you're going to get a monster return for Dorian Finney-Smith. Cam Johnson, that one's a little tougher. There are teams that really love him. Then there are teams that are a little less in love because they don't like the length of the contract. But we'll see, what happens with Cam Johnson as well. And if it's Cam Thomas, yeah, they'd get a nice return on that. I think they could expect probably to get a first-round pick back for Cam Thomas or another young player. I kind of don't think Cam Thomas gets moved. I think the Nets would be happy to hang on to him for now. Ali asked, do you ever see the Sixers moving off Embiid? Ever is a long time, right? We always say, never say never and ever lasts forever. So maybe, right? It's I don't necessarily expect it anytime soon. But yeah, I think there is a world where it's just very rare. Very few players play their entire career with one team. And if Philly decides, all right, we've taken this absolutely as far as we can go, and there's somebody giving them a really nice offer for Joel Embiid, in 2 years, 3 years, maybe then they think about it when he's a little bit, closer to the end of his career, but nothing certainly anytime soon with that. Sports fan asks, Elfrid Payton of Detroit. It's not anything I've heard. Wouldn't surprise me, but I don't think so. My likely guess how they get above the salary floor is they just convert either Cole Swider or Londis Williams, one of their two-way guys, kind of reward them for being there on a two-way contract, convert them over. It'll be on a non-guaranteed two-way, very likely, and then they'll figure it out from there and just kind of go into that. Let's see. Adriana asks if Warriors trade JK, that Jonathan Kuminga, can they pursue him in the offseason? Yes, because he's on a expiring contract. He'd be a restricted free agent, so they could pursue him. The challenge is they're not going to have anything they could offer him beyond maybe the non-taxpayer mid-level, and I'm not even sure they'll have that available. And that's not going to be enough for Jonathan Kuminga. So to trade him and then do a sign and trade to get him back, that would be kind of wild and complicated. I think they just keep him and go from there. Daniel, greetings from Chile. Love the show. I love that, man. I love how much that these guys are here. With that. Trev always says how he misses trades. He hates having to go to the store. Yeah, this is rough for him. I know he's bummed out to not be here. Trevor and I's running joke what we get about 2 weeks from the trade deadline is anytime we leave the house, there's a good chance something's going to go down, especially when we get in a trade deadline week. I think there's something there. Devontae Graham to the Lakers? Yeah, kind of. To the South Bay Lakers. He's going to play in the G League Showcase. You see this with veteran guys. They'll sign on with the G League for the showcase because every NBA team is going to be here in Orlando in a week watching all of these teams play in the showcase. They'll all be here. You're watching these guys and the veteran guys. Hey, if they can jump in, play a handful of games in the showcase, show they can still play. That gives them an opportunity to catch on. I think it was Mark Stein reported earlier today. Frank Kaminsky is very likely to play in this showcase as well. With this, I'm just pulling questions at random. If you want to make sure your question gets answered, make it a super chat because then it auto flags for me, and I'll pull it that way if you get that chance. Let's see here. Adriana, what have you heard? How many teams are interested in Valanciunas? So the Warriors, one of them. I've not heard the Warriors. We know the Lakers are interested. They were interested all the way back this past offseason, and it just didn't get done. I do think he's going to get moved. The Warriors, there was a great article by David Aldridge and Josh Robbins. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. I saw it this morning in The Athletic about the Wizards and how basically yeah, I'm very much paraphrasing, but the comments out of their front office was, yeah, this stinks right now and it's rough, but we're staying the course. We believe in our kids. We're trying to make sure we can push forward and build the right way, around our young guys. And that's what they've done. Their last two drafts, they have 4 guys that play regularly. Alex Sarr, Bob Carrington, and Keyshawn George from this draft. And then they have Bilal Coulibaly from last year's draft. And those guys all averaging, I think it's almost 27 to like 35 minutes in that range. And that's really good. If you're losing, but you're losing with your kids, not the end of the world, right? You're developing, and that's what they're doing. So I do think you're going to see the Wizards move on from some of their veterans. Valanciunas, very likely, contract is very small and tradable. And then I think the other guy we'll see get moved there is Malcolm Brogdon. He's on an expiring contract, and again, a pretty tradable number. So I think we'll definitely see that one get moved on from for sure. Lakers 702 asks, can Golden State bring back Melton next season? They can. What happens with this a lot of times, right? People get very much stuck on a thing where they get they know player gets traded away, team can't reacquire them. And that is true, but that is can't reacquire them for 1 year within trade, or if they're waived and they become a free agent. In Melton's case, his contract is an expiring contract. So they could re-sign him next year because he's just going to be a natural free agent at the end of the year. So I think what we'll see potentially is they may bring him back. They loved him there, and by all accounts, he loved being with the Warriors. So I think you will see them go back. If we think back just a couple years ago, the Pacers and Cavs did this with Ricky Rubio. He was traded away, helped down the stretch run, then was a free agent, then returned back to, I think it was to Cleveland. I think it was Cleveland, Indiana, back to Cleveland is how that went down. If I have that right, maybe I'm backwards on that, but that's how that went down. And I think that's something to keep an eye on with D'Anthony Melton. We could definitely see something like that. Austin Leon asks, what is the best move or moves the Lakers can make in your opinion? Appreciate you and Trev's work. Thank you very much for the kind words at the end there. We appreciate, we love doing the show. We love having the live shows and hanging out with y'all and, having a good time. It's always a blast. Best move or moves the Lakers could make. It's really becomes like, what direction are we going in? And my guess is, all right, we're trying to bolster the team, we're trying to build it up and make a real run. So then you're probably talking about going and getting help. I thought like Dennis Schroder could have been a guy who made sense for them, but the Warriors move first. So then it becomes, all right, who else becomes available? Kyle Kuzma has been somebody that has been bandied about, and obviously he's been in LA before. Could they go get Valanciunas? We already talked about that. Could they get Malcolm Brogdon? They're a little confined because they're right there at the second apron. They're like $30,000 underneath it, which is basically at it. So they've got to be careful, but they can, because they're not over the second apron. They can aggregate salaries together. So you could see, D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt put into a trade, and that's $30 million in matching salary, and that could be enough to get like a Brogdon and Valanciunas. But then you're probably gonna have to give up at least one, if not both, of the first round picks, and we'll see. So I don't know. Brent will follow up with it because it's a Lakers question too. Do you think Lakers make a huge trade or small trade? I think it'll probably be somewhere in the middle. What do you consider like a Brogdon or Valanciunas trade? Is that a huge trade or is that a small trade? If you think that's a small trade, well then that's a smaller trade. I think that's probably more of a medium-sized trade, and that's probably where that goes. There. Justin Hartford says, could impacts of the new CBA make teams want to start trading earlier rather than waiting until the deadline? I think there is something to that, Justin. I think what we're going to see now with some of these teams is there's a benefit to moving early. One, there's only so many teams that are going to do big sell-offs. Like it looks like the Nets are kicking off. So that's going to be one part of it there, right? So that you may not necessarily see, that turn into them. How do I put this? You may not see it turn into being able to wait until February to make your move. You may need to make it earlier because otherwise Dennis Schroeder's been traded. He's not going to get traded again. He's now with the Warriors. So that's just going to be how it is. So you have that part of it. Then just the complications of the aprons and the hard caps. It does make it harder to make deals. So I think you will see teams kind of look at it and say, all right, let's do this. And I think you also have teams that are looking. Last year, the Knicks moved early on OG Anunoby. The Pacers moved pretty early on Pascal Siakam. And both of those teams went on to have really nice seasons. When you make a huge trade like that, which is you're sending a lot of players out or a lot of salary out, and you're bringing back a big salary player is a high usage guy in the case of Siakam, it takes a little while to then reorient your team. So I think what we're seeing here is these teams are kind of, hey, if we're going to do a big move, let's do it earlier rather than later. Because then if you think about it, you do it on February 6th, which is a trade deadline this year. A couple weeks later, we're at the All-Star break. When you come back from the All-Star break, we have a month and a half to go in the season. And that is like, let's cram for the test, especially if you're thinking we're going to be a playoff team. So I think what you're really looking at in this case is we're making a big trade, one of these superstar deals, and really bringing in a guy who's going to really change what our team is fundamentally. Let's get it done early so that we're not stuck in a spot where we're still trying to figure this out on the fly 2 weeks before the playoffs start. Let's really try to get the most advantage we can out of this. So that's kind of where we're at with this. And I'm going back here. Hey, let's do a quick like spike if you can over on YouTube. I would very much appreciate that. That really helps the show. It helps people find the show. We've got over on YouTube alone, we've got 1,000 people, I believe, or somewhere in that range watching here. So let's try to get the likes up on this. That really helps Trevor and I out, helps people find the show. With that, and if you're watching somewhere else, if you're watching over on X or elsewhere, hop over to YouTube if you can, subscribe, like the show. It really helps us out with this. Let's see. Jeffrey says, do you think the Boston Celtics will make any trades? Something small, I would assume, like what they did with the Xavier Tillman and Jaden. if nothing else, to kind of keep kicking that can down the road with the salary slot for a guy like Jaden Springer. I think they'll do that. But hey, look at this. Arkansas Traveler says, I just clicked the like button and added 2 inches to my max vertical. So those results are not guaranteed, but I mean, our guy's telling us but believe him and go with this. Goose Alley asks, can the Clippers make moves? If so, what should they do? They can make moves. They're kind of in the same spot as the Warriors are. They're hard capped at the first apron with a little bit of wiggle room underneath, a little more than the Warriors had. They're super tight to that first apron hard cap, but they can do some stuff. So I think we'll see it. Maybe something smaller. Some of that may come down to if Kawhi does get back within the next week or two. What does that look like? Do they feel like, all right, we think we can really be a playoff team and make a run? Let's try to kind of get into that and make that run there. Let's see. With this, I haven't heard anything specific, about the Mavs, other than I heard the same things that Mark Stein reported, that they're not really in on Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler, it's just so hard for them to match salary. I broke that down in my piece for Spot Track. It was going to be, a huge amount of guys going out, like 5 guys probably going out, because you're not trading Kyrie, you're not trading Luka, obviously. So that's going to be tough to make the salary math work there, and that gets really tough. But Dallas, they've been aggressive at the trade deadline. They really kind of, the moves for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford really remade their team last year and turned them into a playoff team. So that's absolutely huge for them. So yeah, I could see them doing that. Marcus Martian says, appreciate all you and Trev do for us B-ball fans wanting to know the ins and outs of the business. Also from you guys talk yesterday, the only thing I miss is true back to the basket game. I do miss the I grew up on, right, Patrick Ewing versus Hakeem Olajuwon versus David Robinson, and then Shaq came in and jumped into that era, and it kind of just, really threw, he just threw those 3 because they were older guys for a loop, and then Olajuwon got him in the finals and taught him a little bit of a lesson that one year. But I do miss that sometimes, but what I do like now is we get a lot of different guys post up. You'll see, sometimes smalls post up. And one of my favorite things is when a little guy goes in and posts up and scores on a big guy, and then hits him with the 2 small. It always makes me laugh. There's a few things that really just make me laugh like that, and that's one of them. Let's see. Daniel Lim says, can you replace Woj? Shams just isn't the same. No, I don't have the connections. I'm not good enough at doing that. And I honestly, quite frankly, read the piece that Chris Mannix wrote about Woj. Really good, went into his health stuff and just the lifestyle. And that's 100% why I would not want to do that. I like being able to, quite frankly, go watch my kid play sports. I like being able to, go to the movies on occasion and not have to get up and leave a movie theater in the middle because, I'm getting news about a 2-way signing or something like that. Not, it's that is not the life I want. There. Ice Cold Ace, Keith at ESPN would be crazy. Hey, they want to call. I'm open to a conversation. It's always been a dream, and I loved working for Disney, so I would not be upset with going back at all. Daniel Johnson, what would Kobe White's trade value be? Would the Bulls trade him? I joined there's a show podcast out there called the NBA Pod. It's hosted by my buddy Morton Jensen, who is wonderful NBA guy, does a lot of stuff for Yahoo Sports and for Forbes Sports. We actually talked about the Bulls a little bit in that episode I recorded with him today, and Kobe White specifically in there. I really like Kobe White. I'm very high on him as a player. I'm not avoiding the value question of this. I don't think the Bulls are going to trade him. Not that he's untouchable, but I think Kobe White's the kind of guy they're probably going to look towards more saying, let's have him be part of whatever we're going to be next. They're trying to trade Vucevic, but they're not giving him away. They want a first-round pick for him. And if you've looked, the way he's played right now, he has been unbelievable with that. He is I think he's at 58.7% from the field and almost 48% from 3. He's rebounding, he's passing, his defense is what it is, right? So you kind of know that going into it, but he's been great. And then they're still open to trading Zach LaVine. And I can tell you this, I talked to a couple teams that as recently as like the summertime, like, yeah, not really on Zach LaVine. We got to see it. Now they're coming around. So, Zach LaVine's been all right. He's kind of played pretty good. He looks healthy. He looks quick. He looks explosive. So I think there's a chance, we could see them do something here. This is way better than cable TV inner game show. I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Lucas. We're having some fun here on a little front office overtime in between NBA Cup games. Shout out to the Bucks. They knocked out the Hawks. Hawks were right there. They gave them a run, but Milwaukee too much Giannis, too much Dame at times in that game, and then the Hawks just little sloppy. A couple offensive possessions get a little sideways. But, good run for the Hawks in the NCAA tournament. Man, look at me. My brain broke in the NBA Cup. I don't know why I said NCAA tournament because I'm thinking knockout rounds and all that stuff. So let's see. We got another one coming in. Marcus, Andre Miller is probably the best post-up guard, maybe early Westbrook. Also, with the new CBA, where do you think your Celtics' future moves would be? Mark Jackson was an incredible post-up guard, too. So much so that they had to put in the 5-second rule, primarily for him, because they would use 10, 12, 13 seconds of possessions when he was on the Pacers of him just backing guys down, drawing that second defender, and then opening guys up for shots. He was an incredible post-up player for a small point guard. Celtics future moves, a lot of this comes down to two things. One, do they win again? Are they competitive? Are they competing for titles? Two, who buys the team? And what is that owner's appetite for spending an insane sum of money to keep the team together? We're looking at $500 million between payroll and taxes to keep this Celtics roster together over the next couple of years. So we'll see, what answers we get on those things. And if they keep winning and they get, a new owner who's got really deep pockets and wants to keep winning, they don't have to break up the team. That's kind of, people talk about it like they must make trades and get rid of players. It's just not really true. They could, and they may end up taking that path to do that, to kind of rebalance the roster a little bit, make the team a little more affordable, but they don't have to do that. There's nothing against it. They're going to have to continue to then build through very late draft picks, through second round picks, minimum signings, and much like what we've seen the Phoenix Suns have to try to do. But Suns, without a whole lot to work with, came out pretty good in the draft with Ryan Dunn and my guy Oso Iguodaro. If you follow me on Twitter or the Basketball Bulletin, he's one of my favorites. I love him. So they did pretty well with that, despite not having a whole lot to work with. And their minimum signings have been better today with this. Can we now say that December 15th is now the official start of trade season and stop saying unofficial? Let's give it one more year. If this happens 2 years in a row, then maybe, we'll do this. Nick says, not taking questions from Twitter. I'm not seeing questions. This is the first one. In our system, it flags where the questions come in, Nick. So this is the first one I've seen come in from Twitter. So I apologize. If you're replying to the tweets, then I'm not going to see those because I don't want to jump out of our system here to go, load up Twitter and go, especially when I'm flying solo. So, I apologize for that. Brent asked, do I think Rob Pelinka is a good GM? Any moves I wouldn't have done? I would not have done the Westbrook trade. I was on record with that. You could go back and watch Trevor and I's shows about that when it happened. I didn't love the trade because I didn't necessarily love the fit. I understood why they did it and why they took that opportunity. I just didn't really, it just wasn't a trade I was, very high on at the time. Is he a good GM? I think he gets some stuff that he does well. Him and the organization have generally drafted pretty well. You look at some of the guys they've come away with in the draft. It's been pretty solid work for them. No monster home runs. Well, I guess Austin Reeves being like an undrafted guy and turning out to be as good as he is, that's like a home run relative to the expectations of where he was. Don't connect. I don't want to get too nuts. It hasn't even been a half season, but that looks like a pretty good pick too. But they've done some other good work in the drafts since Pelinka has been there. Some of those guys have moved on. They've done much better with like the smaller stuff and really hitting on those moves. Some of the big ones, those have been a little more shaky, but did get him a title. I believe that was still him there. I don't think Kupchak still led the team. Maybe I'm off on that. This is where I need Trevor to keep me straight on that. But I it's a mixed bag for sure. with that. Let's see. Jay Palm asks, any other moves you're looking at tomorrow? No, not really. I don't think so. Getting two, quite frankly, is shocking that we're even getting two here. Reading the questions. So what happens, Z-Buck, is the questions load in to our system through YouTube, and we do get them from Twitter. I'm seeing yours with the Twitter flag next to it, so that's where I'm getting them from. So if you if you're, I think if you're live in the Twitter show and ask a question, it will flow in to here. If you're just responding to the tweets, I'm probably not going to see it. You got to be in the show. Daniel asked, do I see the Celtics moving on from Springer? Yeah, potentially. I think that would just be, let's get another guy who makes roughly the same amount of money, that then we have that money on the books into the next season, whereas Springer's going to be a free agent after this. Do I think Sixers will make a move with Jared McCain out indefinitely? That sucks. I am so bummed out that Jared McCain's out. He was playing so well, a true bright spot for Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a lot of backcourt depth, especially at the ball handler spot. You have Tyrese Maxey, you have Reggie Jackson, you have Kyle Lowry, you have Eric Gordon, who hasn't been playing much. So I don't think they're going to look to make any kind of move in like relation to McCain being out. I don't think that's where they'll really go with this. Just looking through and pulling a few more questions. We already kind of answered if the new CBA's encouraging teams to make trades earlier. We got into that. Andrew F. Grizzlies should trade Smart, Clark, and Aldama with a first for Jimmy Butler. I mentioned that show I did, the NBA pod with Morton Jensen. That was one of my ideas, was why not Jimmy Butler to the Grizzlies? I didn't have Aldama in the trade. I had Luke, but draft picks. The Heat get a couple guys who can still play because they're not clearly going to bottom it out fully, even if they trade Jimmy Butler. And then the Grizzlies get Jimmy Butler for kind of guys where they have depth at those spots. I think that would be huge. I think that would be unbelievable with Jimmy Butler with that. Nothing really with the Suns. They're so limited as a second apron team to the things they can even do with that. So yeah, where's Trevor when I need him? Tell me about him. I'm flying solo here. It's a struggle. Isaac, we talked about Dennis Schroder right off the jump. I think it's a really good acquisition for the Warriors. They needed another guy who could be a playmaker, scorer, creator with the ball in his hands. They were really lacking that when Stephen Curry was out of the game. So that's huge for them to get Schroeder. I think that's a terrific pickup for them to be, in there, especially considering second round picks, which, all right, they're second round picks. They're kind of just currency at this point in the league. And you traded them for a guy who was going to have no impact for your team next year because DeAnthony Melton's out for the year. No, there's no chance of getting Jokic. Like, come on, what are we doing? For the Celtics, like that's madness. Who's the best bet for rookie of the year right now? That's a good question. I'm not sure. We'd have to really kind of. I'd want to go back and look and kind of get into that. But it's gonna be a race because I don't know how long McCain will be out. I don't know if that's going to be a season ender. I'm sure we'll get a much more of an update after he has the surgery on it. But that's a bummer because he was definitely going to be in the mix for sure with that. We talked about AJ Debonsa to BYU the other day on the show. Not something we generally do a lot of talking about high school commits for college, but we talked a little bit about what that might mean there. Do I buy the Kuzma to the Blazers rumor? To an extent, I think there's a chance there because what you could see is they've already done a trade. Anytime the teams have a trade history, there's at least a little something to go off of there. So that could be a thing we see happen, but I don't necessarily expect it with that there. Because don't spam the chat with the same questions. It just makes my life harder. And I already answered some of these too. Any moves that Timberwolves commit? Coach Finch hater. Why do you hate Coach Finch? He's really good. Randall Dante and 4 firsts for LaMelo Ball. Can't do that. They're way over the second apron. They can't combine in aggregate contracts. So that one's your idea. It wouldn't happen anyway, but they wouldn't give up that much for LaMelo Ball. That's an insane price to play for LaMelo Ball. But they can't do it anyway. Again, smaller moves. Were the Wolves, the Bucks, the Suns, the Celtics, all teams that are way over the second apron. They're they're there. So that's we'll see. Where that goes. With that, I shouldn't even have pulled that. Yes, like 700 times. I'm way behind on the chat, guys. I apologize. Let me get back to live here. Zion to the Pistons. I don't know about that. I mean, sure, why not? I don't think anybody's getting Miles Turner, but I've given up on Miles Turner ever getting traded from the Pacers. And I think the Pacers, it's like every time I'm like, yeah, maybe they could pivot in a different direction. They win a couple games and they start playing a little bit better, and then it's like, all right, they're not gonna do anything. So that is I think he stays there. I mean, it's not that he's untradeable, right, or untouchable. If they some team came in with, hey, here's 3 first-round picks, I'd probably trade him and kind of go from there. How much value do you think the Sixers' top 6 pick would have in the market if they don't want to tank? Trading it seems a good option. Well, they'd have to know they have it. That's the challenge, right? Just trading it as a, hey, if we finish in the top 6, we're trading this. That has very little value because that's such a tight protection window that a team's not going to give up very much for that. But if we got to draft time and the Sixers knew they had a top 6 pick and they're like, look, we don't want to add a rookie because we have Maxey and Embiid and Paul George and we're trying to win right now. Yeah, then I think they'd get in this draft, they'd definitely get a pretty good return on that. I have really pivoted in this draft too. I'm in full belief now that it's a top 6 draft. Here you've got Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. You've got VJ Edgecombe, still high on him, and Nolan Traore. Both of those 2 guys have slipped a little bit. But then Demon from BYU, very very, very excited for him. I think he's going to be really good. So I think now we're at 6, and I think that's really interesting. So, but they'd have to know that they have the pick, otherwise no one's going to really want to give up too much there for that. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. I'm flying solo today, so it's a little harder here. Marcus Smart to the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think that's anything the Nets would want to do. That doesn't seem to be a move they would want to make. I think they would be pretty content to just kind of play it out with what they got. What was interesting, Jake Fisher reported as part of the Schroder trade that sounds like the Warriors are going to send Reese Beekman. If you're a college basketball fan, you probably remember him. He's a big-time college player at Virginia, I believe it was. I'm like 99% sure it was UVA. He is a point guard, and they kind of need a point guard now. In that 2-way players can just be put into trades. They don't carry a matching salary component. So as long as you have an open 2-way spot, the Nets do not have one right now. But their 2-way player from China, unfortunately, Yongji, he tore his ACL the other day. So good chance they may move on from him and just kind of go there. Any suitors for Nick Richards? Nick Richards, the guy who comes up a lot because he is a super tradable. He has a super tradable contract because he makes only like $5 million. So he comes up a lot in trade discussions, but no real sense the Hornets are looking to move on. Again, would trade him, sure, but no sense they're really looking to do that. You tell Trevor we're cooked. Trevor's not here, but he'll see it later. I'll let him know too. Yeah, I was high on Jared McCain. Guards who rebound are one of my things. If you're a guard and you rebound, I really like guards who get after it. To me, it shows a level of toughness and generally a level of athleticism, and I really like when we get with that. I don't necessarily see Killian Hayes being called up for Brooklyn. He's still working his way back from an injury, so I don't know. Somebody asked too, I missed it, about Markelle Fultz. He's hurt. That's why he hasn't signed anywhere. He's still working through a knee problem with this. So still kind of trying to figure all that stuff out. There. What does the Schroder deal say about the value of the Wizards players? It doesn't necessarily. If anybody thought like, hey, we're going to get multiple first-round picks for Malcolm Brogdon or Jonas Valanciunas or for Kyle Kuzma, that's probably not going to happen now. Maybe you could get a first round pick for like one of those guys. So that part doesn't really help too much. So that part's a little messier with that, but it's not going to hurt them, I think, anyway. Did I see the Knicks making a trade? Maybe, Joe. It's tough for the Knicks. It's got to kind of be Mitchell Robinson, right? Because they're not going to trade any of their top 6 guys. So the 5 starters and Deuce McBride, those guys are all saying they're not going to trade anybody but Mitchell Robinson or maybe Precious Achiuwa in a smaller deal. Sure, yeah, I could see that being a thing. I could see that happening. With that, do I buy Windhorse saying the new CBA is the Clippers' fault? I don't want to put blame on anybody, but the Warriors, the Clippers, and what the Nets looked like they were headed to, that's what the league as a collective of 30 teams didn't want. And the one thing with the Clippers was Steve Ballmer, there's no tax penalty you can put on him that was going to make him shy away from just continuing to spend and add pieces and just, drive that tax bill up. Because in the time it took me to say that sentence, he found whatever the tax bill would be, in his couch cushions. Because, the guy just, he makes, a crap ton of money every day just off of his stuff. So it's, that part is, kind of is what it is there with that. But it's, they don't want it to be, how do I say this? I don't want to say it was their fault, but I think we're just in a spot where, yeah, I think we're kind of, yeah, they were, were they one of the reasons? Sure. I think that's definitely fair. Do I think Denver picks up Paul Reed? Nugs asked from over on Twitter. Yeah, maybe especially if he clears waivers, that wouldn't be the worst idea for the Nuggets. But they'd have to waive somebody. They have a full roster right now, so I'm not sure, that's where they really want to go. We'll see with that. But yeah, I don't hate that idea for them. Get another big in there. Kessler for a Lakers pick, or would it take both? I think it would probably only take one of the Lakers picks. I'm not sure that's anything the Lakers necessarily want to do with that. Herb Jones, 100% not available. Anybody I've talked to anywhere close to that situation is no chance. Herb Jones is getting traded. So they're no interest at all from the Pelicans there. So all right, we're gonna do a couple more and close it out because we've got the pregame show is now on for the later of the 2 NBA Cup games, the Rockets and the Thunder. That's should be a fun game again. Congratulations to the Bucks. Congrats to the Hawks too for making the run that they made. Jonas or Vucevic to the Rockets. Maybe more likely Valanciunas just because the salary is a lot smaller and very easy to acquire. Vucevic, maybe. Problem is they wouldn't start either one of those guys over Alperen Şengün, nor should they. He's really good and better than both of those guys, and better for what the Rockets need too. But if you could get one of them cheap enough for depth, like sure, why not? I guess. It's certainly not gonna hurt anything to do a move like that. So just trying to run through here. Any more deals tomorrow? I don't think so. We got 2. That's already really good. First time we're even getting 1 in 30 years. So getting 2 is just absolutely huge. All right, we'll end with this one from Joe on Twitter. Who's the next star I think can be traded? Brandon Ingram feels like we're headed towards a trade there. I don't know that the Pelicans are going to find common ground with him on a new contract. So I think we're in a spot where we're going to see Brandon Ingram get moved before the trade deadline. Where? I don't know. I don't have any idea where it is, but I think Brandon Ingram is probably going to be. He may end up being the biggest move unless we do get a Jimmy Butler trade. Then maybe we could see Jimmy Butler get moved as well. But I think we might see somebody kind of say, all right, let's move on Brandon Ingram. All right, guys, this was awesome. Really appreciate y'all for hanging out with me here. We did about 45-ish, 50 minutes on all the stuff that was going on today with the trade news. Dennis Schroder again to the Warriors. Talked about that a lot at the jump of the show, so you can slide back there if you joined in late and check that out. We spent a lot of time on talking about what the Paul Reed waiver could mean for the Pistons as well. Just interesting timing there. They created some cap space. We've got some salary floor stuff they got to figure out. And then we talked a little bit about Thomas Bryant headed to the Pacers. Good depth pickup for a couple seconds. Good for Miami to get some value out of Thomas Bryant, who wasn't playing for them anyway. So super excited to see what else comes now. Trade season is here. It's open. I don't remember who it was said, can we not call it the unofficial? Yeah, let's call it the official start, at least for this year. We're off and running. We got trades maybe even as early as tomorrow. We're going to see some trades go official, the Dennis Schroder trade and the Thomas Bryant trade. So that's going to be huge. Super excited to break it all down with y'all over the time to come. If we get more big, super huge news tomorrow, who knows? Maybe we'll be doing another overtime on Sunday. If we got a reason to, we'll jump on here. Just kind of keep it. Best way to find out: subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. You'll know anytime we're going to go live. We've also got everything set to figure out how to get everything scheduled there. So you'll see when we're planning on doing a show. That'll get scheduled out if we're going to do. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me here. Again, we miss Trevor. Trevor, come back. I need you to captain this ship, or we're lucky I didn't steer us into an iceberg. But thanks so much, guys, for hanging out with me here on Front Office Overtime. We'll catch you next time.